We did this morning. Did you have a sense that self, the way it appears to us, just cannot be found, cannot logically exist? Did that, in some way, was that kind of the conclusion? Or was it just difficult? Okay, all right. Yeah, it's one of the most difficult meditations. I mean, especially when you haven't done this before. It is difficult. I mean, just identifying what we're looking for anyway, to not mix it with what is there. And we haven't even talked about what is there. Yeah, so that's difficult. It is hard, but every time we do it, it gets a little easier. But if you at least get a sense of what we were aiming for, did that happen? We got a sense of what we're aiming for. So the way we ourselves, the I, the self, whatever you want to call it, your soul, whatever it is, the way it appears to our minds, in particular to the self-centered mind that creates a whole story from there, a distorted story, that is sneaky, that is driven, obsessive, and so forth. So as long as you understand that just couldn't be there, it doesn't exist, right? That's kind of the direction we're going. And that doesn't mean there is no self, and it doesn't mean there's no mind and body. We're very good at contradictions. We're very good at contradictions. So there's a mind, there's a body, and somehow this sneaky, non-existent thing comes in there and creates a whole reality that doesn't make any sense when we think about it. Now, if that's true, if that kind of self doesn't exist, we've got a little bit more time on our hand, don't we? We've got more time and energy because we spend so much time defending the I, gratifying the I, finding or obsessing over pleasure, praise, reputation, good reputation, and gain. Right? That's what we're aiming for. And the funny thing is that success is just as deceptive. Like, what is gain? Gain is such a funny one. Gain, when I say gain, what does that even mean? Well, if you're coming from India, from another country, you come with, for instance, I don't know, US dollars, a different currency, and you have to change money. So it's about not losing. Gain, right? All right. So this is very interesting, that phenomenon. So let's say on Monday, you're changing money, okay? Sunday, you didn't want to go, right? But you checked online, what is the exchange rate? So the exchange rate was lower. In other words, you got less for the rupee, for the dollar yesterday. And today you get, I don't know, what's the exchange rate for the dollar? $1, what is it roughly?
82.
Let's say 80, okay, 80. 87? I just checked. 87, that was quick. So 87, all right, yesterday was 85. So today we get 87. Whew. Well done. Did it today. Good, I didn't go yesterday, right? I'm not losing out. I'm getting 87. Great. Okay, we feel good. There's some gain. However minor it is, but there's a satisfactory kind of sense. But let's say yesterday was 89, and today we get 87. The same amount. 87 in both cases. But yesterday was 89. There was no way I was going to go yesterday anyway. I had already decided this Sunday, it's a day off. I'm going to, chill, and I'm not going to go to the bank or to the Western Union or the exchange place. So I get the same amount, but in relation to yesterday, I feel I've gained or I've lost, right? In relation to that, or even worse, tomorrow. Oh, the regret if it's 89 tomorrow. Or the joy if it's 82 tomorrow. So gain and loss, they seem to be so solid and so concrete. I don't want to lose out, right? I go to the store, there's a sale, there's some in the supermarket, there's some special sale. Yeah, I got so much hummus and, 3 for the price of 1. Well done, right? But I don't realize they hiked up the price in the first place, so it's actually the same price. I'm paying the same, just don't realize, yeah. Or they put the price onto the tahini, the trina, as you call it, the trina. So the tahini. So I actually paid the same, except now I pay a little less for the hummus, but more for the tahini, as an example, or more for the dai. I can say that in Hindi, the curd, but less for the bindi. So kind of like there's like a balance there. But the point is, it's mainly our mind labeling relation to this, that, and the other, gain or loss. They don't, in and of themselves, the 87 rupees that I'm getting for the dollar on Monday, in and of themselves is neither gain nor loss, but it feels a lot more than just in relation to yesterday. It's so real. It seems so real. It seems there's a truly existence. So when I say real, as in like independent of anything, a very concrete gain. And that's what I want for this very concrete I. Number 1, gain. And they're little things all the time, right? When you go shopping, like a sale, like especially in Europe. I mean, I don't know, in India, you don't have sales as much. Oh yeah, I guess on Amazon, on all these platforms now that since COVID basically took off incredibly, there are sales and stuff, I suppose. Or in other, yeah, depending on the shops you go to, you get it cheaper sometimes, or you bargain with the shopkeeper and they're kind of in a good mood and they go down drastically and you're like, yes. Yeah. It's like we can go on and on and on, spend so much time on just bargaining just for those few rupees and I get a gain, right? It's very much an obsession, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's also what we're obsessed with. We don't like to lose. We don't like to waste money. We don't like to lose, right? Or is there anyone who disagrees? So anyone who would go purposely if the rupee's just gone down? I want to help the Indian government, so, so no, it's not going to happen. All right. So there's that. Then there is being praised. We're so defensive. That word is such a good word. We become defensive. We don't want to be criticized, even though we know it's true. But we've done our very best to hide it. And if we haven't hidden it, well, we don't want anyone to talk about it, or others to know, or whatever, right? So again, it's very interesting. So it doesn't stop with the I. It then moves towards what's called the 8 worldly dharmas. Striving, obsessing over gain, and obsessing over avoiding loss, right? And whatever that means, great loss, lesser loss, whatever. Okay. And then praise, wanting to be praised, not wanting to be criticized. Yeah? And it always depends who is praising us, who is criticizing us, how they do it. That is definitely a component that makes a difference in terms of how we feel. But in general, no one really likes it. Being criticized versus, especially when it's something, I don't know, when we have a hard time changing it and we're embarrassed about it, and then we definitely don't want others to find out or to point it out. So it depends, it always depends. But basically, yes, we're attached to, we're obsessing over, or we're attached to praise, and we're attached to avoiding criticism. Okay, all right. So then, wanting to have a good reputation, right? Who doesn't want to be liked? And again, there are huge differences. Wanting the whole world to think you're wonderful, like in the case of like some actors, actresses, or I don't know, singers and so forth. That obsession is so, so, so dangerous. Once you become famous and everyone loves you for your voice, from Buddhist point of view, who cares? Your voice is, the mind is so much more important, right? But actually, I get it, especially as a young person. Usually the more famous singers are younger, of a certain age. There's not the same maturity that you have when you're a little older in terms of how to handle fame. Suddenly everyone thinks you are the greatest person in the world. I mean, the religious figures have been replaced by actors and by singers. What do people worship nowadays? What do people worship? Actors. I mean, I saw Shah Rukh Khan once. He came onto like a platform outside of his house and people just went crazy. Wow. I mean, he's amazing. He's definitely, I saw like a documentary. He kind of seemed like a nice guy, right? It wasn't like, oh, I'm the hero. I don't know, but he could pretend. I have no idea. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but that obsession. And that's not unique to India. I mean, the Beatles, that's when it started. Girls going, ah, and guys as well, you know, going crazy, fainting over, wow, this is a totally new thing. Because you didn't have that wide access that you have now. It started around, I guess, you know, like the Beatles, Elvis Presley, and so forth. From there, that star, that worship of stars. Yeah, so it's no longer the Buddha. You know, give me Mick Jagger. No, you're too young. You're too young for Mick Jagger. You still know who Mick Jagger is? Yes. Okay, you do. Have you ever heard of the Rolling Stones? Yes. The Rolling Stones? No? Okay. Elvis Presley? Yes. Yeah, okay. So, all right. Elvis Presley, all right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, anyway, so whoever it is, but the point is, it's incredible. It's almost like that need to find someone we can worship is still there, but the objects have changed now. And I mean, I get it. As a teenager, as you know, like with all the hormones and all the mess in my head, certain songs just put me at ease. There were certain songs that, you know, I felt didn't solve my problems, but in that moment, it gave me some comfort, or in that moment, they weren't as strongly there. So I was grateful to those singers, but it does go over the top sometimes, right? But then the poor singers, right? If they don't have enough self-confidence and know that this is very superficial, if you don't produce a song in the next 10 months, out of sight, out of mind, you're a thing of the past. So the pressure and everything, and wanting to be liked. And initially it's like, wow, 1 million people like me. And then 10 million people, 100 million, and suddenly it goes down to 98 million. Oh, I'm so depressed. Right? Again, gain, loss, gain, loss. It's only in relation to what you had before, and then you hold on to it, and suddenly there's another singer who's just more popular. Oh, bummer. And then you get into that competition in that must be so hard. And then you do something and social media just tears you apart. And because of not having enough confidence, then your identity is determined by what people say about you. That is terrible. And in order to be able to handle it, you look towards drugs. Okay, and then, well, your friends, you don't know who your real friends are. The people that you consider, they could be friends with you because they want to be seen with you. It enhances their status. It's terrible. Very difficult, that kind of fame. You know that Buddhas and Bodhisattvas also want to be famous? Does that make sense? That they want to be famous? For different reasons. For very different reasons. So it can easily be misunderstood. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be famous, but there's a reason for wanting to be, because I want to feel special, or I want to be able to access as many people as possible. If I have something to say, for instance, this homeless Dalai Lama, if you listen carefully, I told you about my stepmother who's so anti-religious. But when she heard his homeless talk about emptiness, wow, she loved it. She absolutely loved it. It was an emptiness. I was like thinking, because I was sitting where the Sangha sat, so I was worried about my stepmother the whole time. Not about my parents, but about my stepmother. She's so anti-religious. And I kept trying to think, what is it like, trying to imagine what she's hearing through her mind. How does she? And I was like, oh gosh, she's gonna leave. That was my sense. This is full on emptiness. And she comes and she's like, wow, that made so much sense. and it was incredible. This is His Holiness. I could say whatever I wanted, no effect, obviously. So she, wow, like His Holiness said it, wow. So you see, it was the fame. One part of it was the fame, but it wasn't just that. But it does, if you have a hall full of like 8,000 people going, whoa, very difficult to think, oh, he's just a fake or something, right? You're also, it's all psychological. So these are all, if the methods, the message, if the message His Holiness has is beneficial, then all that around that is not important can help. And then it makes sense that the lamas being famous, it's almost like shameful to say you want to be famous because we associate it with self-centeredness and nothing more. But it makes perfect sense to have someone who just listening to them can change your life, to be so famous that people have access to him, or at least him or her, and are interested in what they have to say. So they do similar things, but not for their benefit, for their own benefit, but for the benefit of others, right? Okay, so that part of wanting to have a good reputation is also important for them, because whoever likes them will benefit from their view. Okay, but in general, ordinarily, wanting to be liked, the more Facebook friends, the better. There's like a cartoon I once saw, it was really famous, a really funny cartoon. It's like a guy it's the funeral of this guy, and like in the US, you have like their bar, the coffin is in the room and there are chairs and people sit there and possibly mourn the death. If it's in a religious context, it may be in a church. And there's this empty room. All the chairs are empty. There's a coffin in the front. And then one guy talking to another next to the coffin. That is so weird. He has so many Facebook friends. So no one showed up. How weird. He has so many Facebook friends. So it's like this fantasy that you're popular because there are all these Facebook friends that either befriended you for whatever reason, they don't know you, so it has nothing to do with your personality, or you befriended them, and again, nothing, and still it feels like, oh, the likes. Gosh, oh God. If our lives revolve around likes, ooh, it becomes difficult. Yeah, anyway, I'm just saying, and that is in the 21st century, of course, but in general, we have that tendency. We're like drug addicts. Right? We want to be, it's an addiction. It's an addiction that is only harmful. The more you like, the more you want. That's the problem. The more popular you are, the more you want it. In general. I'm not saying that's true for everyone. Some are like, okay, I'm popular, I'm not, what do I care? In fact, they may find it annoying to have to answer so many messages and emails. But yeah, everyone is different, of course. But in general, we have that tendency. And then there is success. That's not part of the 8 worldly dharmas. But I think, pleasure, I forgot to mention pleasure. So we do everything to achieve pleasure and avoid, so have pleasant experiences, sensual experiences, and avoid unpleasant experiences. This is worse for people who are very rich and are born with a lot of luxury. It's so difficult for them to bear any kind of hardship. We grew up with a very funny story, the princess on the pea. You know the story? Yeah, the princess on the pea. It was this funny story of this really spoiled princess, and I don't even remember the whole story, but I don't remember how. I just know at the very end, because she's so spoiled, so the slightest discomfort is unbearable. So at some point, pile up all these mattresses so that she has this really soft bed. And below the lowest mattress, they put a pea. And then the next morning she wakes up, oh, I didn't sleep well, there was something in my bag. So it feels a bit like that. We're princesses on a pea. The slightest discomfort, especially some people in the West, like they eat their food and the spinach doesn't have that green color they expect, and they send it back. And they're so uncomfortable, like there has to be everything perfect. They can only stay in 5-star hotels, and they can only take like a private car there. They need to have their own airplane, because who travels first class? How terrible, how unbearable, right? That's that being used to so much luxury. But actually, right now in the 21st century, all of us are like that in comparison to just 200-300 years ago, when we didn't have attached bathrooms, when people lived in places that were more like caves. Toilet, outside, right? Having a shower, a lot of water you need to carry. Making food, well, first let's collect some wood. I mean, now we're all like princesses on peace. So that has become very difficult, our addiction to comfort. And a lot of Dharma centers struggle with that because they don't have the luxurious facilities, in particular in European countries. So some friends of mine who work in the different Dharma centers who say, well, you know, I don't know how many years ago, like 30 years ago, people were comfortable to share a bathroom, it was okay. But nowadays, no bathroom, no TV on your room, in your room, becomes really difficult, and that's a Dharma center. People have to give up their devices. Did you have to give up your devices? Did you have to give up your phone? Oh, okay. Toshita has the same policy. But I know there's some clever people who have a way around it, but I'm not going to tell you what the tricks are. Anyway, no, but the thing is, yeah, it's really hard to be without because we're so used to it. So we've become so much more dependent. Right? Okay, so there's pleasant, so wanting a certain comfort. We call it comfort. We don't even call it pleasant experiences, but comfort and avoiding discomfort, certain discomfort, right? So, and that is automatic. It's very hard. It's like on a daily basis it builds up and you're used to it, and suddenly everything that is not that, and just thinking, I have to travel to Delhi on a local bus. The worst part is the anticipation. The trip itself is never as bad. So the worst part is just thinking of it, right? Okay, so we're very much slaves to that. Based on an I, we've imagined that we need to protect, we need to gratify, we have to keep free from criticism, free from displeasure, free from dislike, and free from loss, and free from being unsuccessful. Right? That's 5 things, or 10 to be precise, avoiding one and developing or achieving the other. That's a lot of time and energy, right? Then we're very busy. There's not much space in our mind for compassion. Are you kidding me? I'm too busy for compassion. I'm too busy with myself. I can barely look after myself and get these 10 things, and if not more, right? So it's not that we don't have compassion. It's not that we don't have the potential. In fact, we have that baby compassion. We have it right there. Usually, if we don't think of ourselves, we're not busy with ourselves. We have a moment where we actually, none of those 10 are in any way bothering us. And we see someone suffer. Right away, we want to help. But before long, that sense of an I that needs to be gratified, that needs to be protected, that comes in, and I go, well, actually I don't have time. Oh, that's too much time. That's too much of an effort. So you see, those two are connected very strongly. Our sense of a separate I that keeps us so busy, and our ability or our being unable to have compassion for others. That's why we're just trying to create some space in the mind. Trying to create some space in the mind. Because there's so much worry and anxiety that all comes back to that. If we did not have this unrealistic sense of an I, we wouldn't have worry, we wouldn't have anxiety, we wouldn't be upset, we wouldn't grieve, we wouldn't have any of that. That doesn't mean it's bad. No, 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 no. And just wishing it away is also not going to take care of it. But analyzing the I, all right, doing it again and again. And when there's a strong feeling of I, especially in those moments, when someone like says something and I can feel very strongly, I can feel myself getting defensive. Just thinking, oh, but it's not there the way it appears. Even not fully understanding it, but just reminding us, allows us to breathe, allows us to calm down, to realize what's the worst that can happen. They're saying this now. If they're criticizing me as an example, and they're right with what they're saying, well, thank you for reminding me and to give me the opportunity to finally make a change. If they were wrong, well, they're just plainly wrong. They just didn't get me right. Okay, never mind. It's not the end of the world. I don't need to fully understand me. It doesn't make me better or worse. So really to gain that freedom. It's an incredible freedom. Right? Someone criticizes me. Okay, doesn't matter. What's the worst that can happen? People who know me well enough, even if they criticize me, even if this person speaks bad about me, they're not going to believe it. They're not going to believe it, right? They know me well enough. Those are the people that count anyway. What do I care what the bus driver thinks about me? And if I'm kind enough and I make an effort, then once the bus driver becomes my good friend, well, it doesn't matter what other people say, they'll still be my friend. Most important is to be truthful, to not regret what we're doing. If we harm others, we deceive others, that's the bit to be really upset about. And then in the end, what people think or do or whatever, I feel good about myself. I'm comfortable with myself. And then they criticize me, fine. It gives me the opportunity to reflect, okay, are they right or not? If yes, oh, there's room for improvement, great, thank you. I'm so grateful for pointing it out. If not, okay, sorry, you misunderstood me and, yeah, sorry that you saw it that way, but okay. I mean, without getting defensive, still being kind and, yeah. And sometimes people are just grumpy. It's also true sometimes, it seems to be so, wow. But you can, if you watch, if you don't pay attention too much to this eye, but really watch them, sometimes you can tell, even when they approach you, they're already full of aggression. There's already something that put them off. And we just get the full force of that. It's nothing personal, actually. What does it even mean? It's personal, right? It feels so personal. There's always a sense there's an I, that it's not directed at my mind or body, it's directed at my I. It's personal. Okay, where's the I? Where's the I? Remember, where is it? Where is it? Can't be found. So it's not personal. It can only be personal if there were the kind of I that we imagine is there. What else does it mean personal? If it's not an attack at my I. I'm taking it personal. It's not about attacking the body or the mind. Or is it? They're really trying to hurt the I. Yeah, but since that I, that particular I, that is the basis for making it personal, is not there, how can it ever be personal? Am I making sense? Ronnie, am I making sense? Processing is good, yeah. Right? Okay, so, therefore, if we again and again remind ourselves, just when things get really tough, I mean, we will all have, once you leave from here, you go back into, what is there? I can hear the sigh. Once you leave from here, it gets back to life, right? But that's great, that's your training ground. If it was always easy and almost soft and love, and we all love each other, and we practice on each other, okay, right? No, 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 it's good. It's good to get out into the world, into those people that are more difficult, because then we find, oh, that's what I still need to work on, okay? And that's our practicing ground. So someone attacks us, shouts at us, oh, but there's no I. That I that I think it's not there. What are you shouting at? Oh, okay, right? And if you stay calm, then they'll get if you go like, it triggers something in them. So if initially they were already annoyed, and then you get like, and that annoys them even more, and annoys you further. So then before long there's a fight. But if you remain calm, right? Remain calm, without going, oh yeah, hit me over the head. No, 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 that's the other extreme. But just remain calm, yeah? And even if you can have a compassionate mind towards them, yeah? I tell you why. There's one example, it's very cute. There is a man, or there used to be a man, I haven't seen him in a long time, in Dharamshala. He had some mental problems, serious mental problems. He was a monk at some point, and then I think he disrobed and he got married, and he developed some mental issues. And they were such that sometimes he was so angry, and he would stand in the middle of the road and just shout and say the worst things. One time he got angry with His Holiness, and a newcomer from Tibet, not knowing his mental state, actually punched him in the face because he said something about His Holiness. But anyway, so most people know. And he's under the control of his anger. There's not much you can do. So if you approach him the wrong way, then, and you know what I found out? It's only when he's hungry. So people know he's hungry or thirsty, then it's when he gets angry. So immediately a Tibetan comes and says, even though they don't know him, come on, let's have some tea. Come, I'll invite you for a meal. And he's like, okay, and goes with them. It's so cute. It's so cute. I've watched it so many times that the monks around, usually it's the man reacting, because as a woman you're a little careful, his strength and so forth. But mostly it was guys approaching him and say, oh, okay, come, let's have some tea. And right away, because he's hungry, he goes with them. Right away he stops shouting and goes with them. Right? Isn't that beautiful? So no one takes it personal. They don't react. They don't say, yeah, keep shouting or something. They don't do anything. They're not even too, they don't turn into doormats. They just know, okay, something triggered his anger, so let's deal with it skillfully, and that's it. So not becoming a doormat, not becoming a sucker, a friar or whatever, but also not becoming aggressive. Yeah? So this is, of course, an extreme example. But similar to just getting a sense, especially if we know the person, right? We know what calms them down. And you know, sometimes even if someone accuses us of something, and we may have done it, if we've done it, we can say, oh, I think what, in my case, I mean, I'm just trying to think, if I'm really angry with someone, what would pacify my anger right away? It would be if the other person listens to what I'm saying, kind of like, I get it. Yep, you're right. Sorry. I couldn't be angry. Right? I couldn't be angry because if I'm hurt, they listen to me, they take me serious, they don't become defensive, but actually go, oh, okay. Instead of starting a counterattack, which is often the case, but you also did. No. Listen and say, oh, okay, all right, yeah. What do you mean exactly? Can you explain it? You really try to understand. So can you say, oh, that's what you mean. Yep, you're right. So sorry. And then they go, yeah, sorry, I shouted. Right? Usually it pacifies, the situation dies down. Right away, the momentum is lost, that force is lost. You take it away, and even the other person in that moment realizes how extreme it was. If you react in level-headed, but you still respect them. The beauty of it is the respect. I hear you. Kind of like you're not treating them with what's the word? Disrespect, with like belittling them, or, sometimes people laugh, or, I mean, that would be terrible. No, with respect. Okay, let me hear what you have to say. Okay, wait, calm down a little bit. Okay, tell me slowly without saying you're shouting. No, no. Tell me, again, explain it to me. And then they have to calm down because they have to collect their thoughts. They can't think with all that anger. And then a dialogue is possible. Yeah. I think that's totally possible. I think the worst, the most angry person, it's always possible to calm them down. If you're, and of course if they have some mental problems, and you know it's got to do with, I mean, that this attack has to do with food, well, take them to a restaurant. As they always did with this guy. Yeah. Yes, please, Ronnie.
I think I get the idea that there is no mind.
Okay.
And it's still confusing about the part of why actually the mind is not part of the brain. As you mentioned a few times.
Yeah, part of.
Still something, I don't know.
Of course, the mind is very strongly connected to the brain. You couldn't be Ronnie the way you are right now mentally if you didn't have a brain. Okay? Very, very strongly connected. So, for instance, you know, like these tents, not the modern tents where you have these pegs that you put in the ground, right? You know, the tents, like the, yeah, thank you, right? The old tents, when you have different poles leaning against each other. Are you aware of these tents? There's some old-fashioned tents, or people used to have in the past, like a teepee, yeah, like a teepee. So, okay. Now you have two poles leaning against each other. Both are dependent on each other. If you remove one, the rest collapses. Are they the same? No. One pole is different from the other. But you couldn't have one without the other. Yeah? So you have, like, let's say two leaning against each other. That's like mind and brain. You couldn't have one without the other. In the case of right now, as humans, to have the human mind we have, the human mind can leave the body, but then it's no longer, the mind then changes. We have a particular mind that is very much based on the brain we have. Okay? Does that make sense? So, what is the brain? The brain is the gray matter, the neurons, the synapses, the enzymes, all that we label brain. It's matter. And then, dependent on that, is something we do which is knowing, experiencing. Things appear to us. For instance, I ask you, think of your breakfast. What happens? Or I tell you, don't think of breakfast. What comes? It appears to your mind. Don't think of an elephant. Stop thinking of an elephant. And what appears? An elephant. Does that appear to your brain? No. The brain makes it possible. Yeah, the brain makes it possible. In particular, if this morning you saw an elephant or sometime in the past, because you have had a visual cortex, you could see the elephant in the first place. And now you have a memory of that. Again, probably also some chemicals in the brain that allows you, because people who have brain damage, certain people who have brain damage, they may experience memory loss. So there's definitely a part, but that's not the memory. Just that experiencing, that remembering, that we call mind. The activity of remembering, we label mind. Right? What is the mind? It's not some thing that flies over the brain or something. No. Don't think of it in that way. It's the function, the ability to know, that knowing. That's it. That knowing is called the mind. That knowing aspect. So now the question is, does that make sense? Ronnie, does that make sense? So they're not the same. Yes?
So how would you explain that when we die, the brain dies?
Okay. Well, yeah, that's what I'm getting at now. Well, let's first say one more thing before I get to that. So just for now, your mind right now, the mind you have right now is very much dependent on the body. But now I have one question. Of these two, brain and mind, which one influences the other more? Pardon? Do you think brain is the mind? Okay, let's do this.
kind of see the mind as kind of functionality of the brain somewhere.
Well, it's strongly connected, but it's still not the same. Even if you call it a functionality of the brain, it's still not the brain. Okay, so that's the first step towards understanding. Okay, it's something that is not the brain. It's not the synapses, it's not the enzyme, it's that experiencer. Does that make sense? That's the experiencer. Yes, Tyler, you want to say something?
Mind is consciousness too in the way. So maybe if you think about the consciousness first brain, like perceiving what it's like to be you. Is that a fair statement?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, mind and consciousness are the same. So maybe if you use the word consciousness, that's easier. In the West, of course, mind and consciousness are not considered the same, but in Buddhist terminology, they're the same, yes. So let's say consciousness, being conscious. It's not the brain that is conscious, right? It's actually consciousness that is very much dependent on the brain. But let me ask you one thing. Have you ever heard of these experiments that people do with meditators? Like people who meditate a lot, they check their brain. So what came first? The meditation, the mind meditating, and then the brain changed? Or was it first that the brain changed and then the person was able to meditate? What came first? No, but I'm saying like in this very lifetime, just in this very lifetime, it's not so much about the chicken and egg in general. No, but I'm saying in this lifetime, you have never meditated and you meditate for the first time. What comes first? The mental activity of meditating, or is the brain doing something and then you can meditate? What do you think? For instance, when you study for an exam, okay? So what is studying? Is it the brain first and then the mind does it? Or is it first the mind thinking about what you learned in class, reflect? That's true. Yeah, of course. If we didn't have the brain in the first place, we could do it. But in that moment, as we're learning, right, we have a human brain. If we had, let's say we had been reborn as an animal, we'd been reborn as a frog, you can sit in the classroom until the day you die, you won't be able to study. Okay, so we were born with a particular brain, which is like a container for our mind. And within the limits of that brain, we can develop our mind. But we can go beyond our brain. We can do things that other people... So there are cases where people develop their minds. So some of the meditators, the neuroscientists look at their brain and go, wow, I'll tell you a fascinating story. There's something called the Nuns Project. Not the Tibetan Buddhist Nuns Project. There's a Christian Nuns Project. It goes back many years. There's a nun's order in America, in the US actually. Forget what they're called, the Sisters of Mercy or something. And they have this order. They're socially very active. So they teach for many, many years. They help people, disadvantaged people like who undergo hardships, like especially the children of those families. And what some neuroscientists noticed, that they become very, very old and still they're very, very active. So they were fascinated by it. And one of these nuns, I think she was the abbess. She was already in her 90s and still she was teaching, she was active, she was full of energy. Her memory was very crisp, she could remember things. And they practiced compassion and this compassion in action, basically. So the neuroscientist says, well, when you pass away, sister, whatever, Elizabeth or whatever, can we have your brain to analyze it? And she's like, sure, can I have my brain? Okay, so she donated her brain to science. She passed away, and then her brain was given to these neuroscientists. So this one scientist or many scientists. And one after the other, they did that, these nuns. They were all already elderly, yeah, and many of them all of them donated their brains, I guess. And you know what they found? Oh, it gives me goosebumps. Many of them had Alzheimer. Their brain was eaten up. They had the brain of an Alzheimer person, but it never showed. Their mind had gone beyond. So it's called the Nuns Project. You can just still read about it. Of course, there were other factors involved, their level of education and so forth. But we all probably heard of someone who's well educated and still got Alzheimer. No, it was more than that. Their practice, they went beyond just like usually people, they work until they're 60 and then, okay, done with working. And so they pretty much sit at home and they watch television and they don't use their brain in the same way. And there's not necessarily some practice of benefiting others, etc. And, if you don't use it, you lose it kind of idea, right? Use it or lose it. So basically, you have developed Alzheimer, the mind is affected, but these nuns went above and beyond what ordinary people do because of their belief. So wanting to benefit others, there's so much work that needs to be done in their communities, and they continued. So they had this determination to be of benefit. Love and compassion were definitely strong driving forces. And that kept their brain healthy. They had a brain that was totally destroyed by Alzheimer, but no single. Isn't that incredible? And I'm not making this up. You can read about this. I'm not making it up. You just Google Nuns Project. But don't get caught in the Tibetan Nuns Project. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I love that. Wouldn't it be fair to assume then Alzheimer's, or at least the symptoms of Alzheimer's, because they did have that in Tibetan communities or heavily Buddhist communities where both lay and monastic practitioners are diligent, you would see very little Alzheimer's? I imagine that's an easy thing to...
I have not heard, honestly, of a monk or nun who has studied, who's very active, who has gotten Alzheimer. I don't know anyone. I know elderly Tibetans who often are illiterate, especially at this generation that is elderly now, haven't learned to read and write in Tibet, doing the same. There's definitely dementia and so forth. But I haven't yet heard of, for instance, a scholar like a monk scholar also practicing, for instance. Never did I hear that they had dementia or that things are slowed down. Even with His Holiness, just recently, His Holiness really changed. I've heard one of the injection His Holiness got, didn't agree, like one of the COVID vaccination, His Holiness his body didn't agree with. And I thought, wow, because translating for His Holiness, he said it again and again and repeated himself, and wow, I thought, this is weird. And it went on for some time, and I was really like, wow, this is really weird. And just recently it changed again. It changed again. His Holiness is as crisp and as, like when I had an audience with my mom, he was just like the way I knew. So it was like, wow, I was totally wrong. Yeah, it's changed again. And I talked to the technician who's responsible for us translating. We had a conversation the other day, and actually when I was already here, the first day I was here, we had a test, and I talked to him directly, and he's online actually, and he said, His Holiness is getting better every day. Every day his mind is getting sharper. Every day his mind is getting sharper, right? Wow, that was like, usually it's the other way around. Yeah.
Some people think it was the vaccine flu, or like the second flu shot.
Well, the private office, someone I know in the private office said after the shot, it started. So their view is it may have just been a reaction, or His Holiness also had COVID. Yeah, so His Holiness had COVID, then his knees got really bad, and there was some His Holiness manifested some illnesses. I mean, usually we say manifest for our benefit. But the thing is, I was so worried. I was so sad. Like translating for His Holiness, I remember one day it was so bizarre. What His Holiness said was so bizarre, and I was so, wow. And the next day was back to normal. I was like, what just happened, right? So the thing is, the lamas are different. The lamas are quite different. And sometimes it's also our own mind that is reflected in the actions. So they explain it, His Holiness didn't agree, like his body didn't agree. I don't know. But the fact is that whether His Holiness or anyone else, I have never, I'm trying to think of a monk who had dementia even. No. Do you know anyone? Do you know anyone? Not even nuns. I know some nuns who have mental problems, but those go back a long time ago. Or even monks who may have a mental problem. Nuns, a little bit more nuns. I'm more aware of nuns. At least 2 nuns, but they were like that when they were younger as well. Because sometimes there's this tendency in Tibet itself, like, what are we going to do with her? She's not going to get married. Well, she becomes a nun. Yeah, that's still, unfortunately, in some areas of Tibet, you have very few nuns, and the only nuns are those who won't get a husband. Yeah, that is traditionally, but it's changing now with His Holiness's effort. Like, we don't need quantity, we need quality. But, like in the past, I mean, monks were always having a higher position than nuns. So that was also one reason. So the nuns community was not as highly respected as the monks community, and that's still the same. That's still the same. There's still male teachers.
Female Dalai Lama.
Yeah, but I don't know whether the Tibetans are, accept a female Dalai Lama. I think it's maybe too early. I'm not sure, because the Tibetans have to also accept. I mean, show me a Tibetan Lama who's a lady who's widely accepted. No one. I mean, there are some Lama, like female Lamas, but there's only small groups of people, and definitely not the Tibetans. And I mean, just as a Western woman, oh gosh, I mean, my life would be easy as a man, I tell you. As a female teacher, right? Oftentimes it's the Western monks who are more misogynist than the Tibetans. When I got my Geshe degree, there were some very strong voices against from the Western monks. Yes, they didn't like it. Yeah, well, everyone, not all the monks, some were very, very supportive. But, misogynism is not something that doesn't exist in the West. It's often suppressed because it's not politically correct, but it's still part of society. And if it's suppressed, it comes out stronger. I had some really interesting experiences with some monks. Wow, I couldn't believe it. Yeah. There's one person who used to come to my class when they were a lay person. And then they entered the monasteries and started studying, and the next time they saw me, they pretended they didn't know me. Come on, say at least hello. Who cares, right? It happens. It's just human. Yeah. So there are many stories like that. But of course, not all of them, and they change over time. Some of them really, of course, the Dharma, it's in the beginning pretty much. And then slowly they do change, of course, sooner or later. But you can't expect that they right away change. No one does. But yeah, so therefore, in Tibetan Buddhism, the world is still not totally equal. Of course not. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's the result of my past action, what I experience. Right? Yeah, absolutely, totally. So I can't blame the monks and say, I'm just exactly part of that. I created all this. So sometimes I'm thinking, especially in the beginning, my reality was that of being pretty much limited as a woman. So I was thinking, what did I do in a previous life? I saw myself as some kind of overweight monk, putting down the nuns. And that was my reality, and that was so liberating. I was like, I probably did that. It's very easy to just blame the monks, but I also created the causes for that. Yeah. And it was very interesting when I first became a nun, I felt so discriminated against. And the funny thing is, my nun friends didn't have these experiences. I mean, besides the fact they didn't study with monks, they were not only with nuns, but that was a different reality. They didn't have these. So partly I imagined them. I was super receptive, like anyone. And it wasn't always misogynist. And sometimes it really was. But recognizing I created the causes for that was so liberating. I felt, then I thought, like, what could it have been? And in my mind, I imagined just being, I don't know why, overweight monk, but, just the big monk. The nuns should not study. The nuns should not. They should sit in the very back. That explains it. I really found that helpful. And I thought, oh, I better watch out to not fall into the same patterns again, right? But I do speak out, and I don't mention names, but I also want to say this is what happened. And when some of the monks, when they become monks and they go to study, I tell them that sometimes, and I say, let's see how you will. Now you're very open and open towards nuns, but when you become a monk, let's see. And so they're like, no, I won't become like that. So I know for certain there's one, I told him that, and no, he's really not become like that. He's remembered. No, he doesn't treat me differently than anyone else or other nuns for that matter. Yeah? So sometimes it's just good to say it so it doesn't happen. Yeah. Anyway, how did I get to that? Dementia. Yeah. Ronnie's question. So, very important, going back. What is it that determines what? What is it, mind over brain or brain over mind? Well, in the case of the nuns, it's obviously mind over brain. But in other cases, it's brain over mind. So if we take control, it's actually in our own hand, in other words. We can do something about dementia, etc. And nowadays, it's not about religious practice as such. My mom, for instance, goes to a class where they do brain training. So there's a group of elderly women, elderly men, and they have to memorize, they have to do logical asks. So it's not like an exercise class where you physically exercise. She does that too, but in that particular class, they do these mental exercises. And you could do it in an app, actually, but my mom doesn't know how to use these apps. And it's nice to be with others and to share. So they're doing these brain games. Yeah.
Actually, the story that popped up in my mind now is about my mother too.
Yeah.
A few years ago, she had a stroke.
Okay.
And she was in the emergency room for a month, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they saw in the very first MRI that they did to her that all the lower part of the brain
Yeah.
is covered with white dots.
Oh.
Which is like
Some
sign
plaque.
for like dementia in the future, Alzheimer's or something.
Whoa.
And then for months, when she got out, also in the hospital, but also when she was released.
Yeah.
So she had these brain games,
Mm-hmm.
and she did them like for, I don't know, 8-10 hours per day.
Wow.
And she really changed the way she eats and everything. And then often a year afterwards, they did her again the MRI, and they said that all white dots were removed.
Wow.
And actually, I don't know why I didn't think about it until now. But
Yeah.
the doctor was like,
How is that possible?
did you take a magic pill or something? She was like, I didn't take any of the pills. I only ate that way. I only like to train my brain every day. And it's like, it's completely removed.
Isn't that liberating? Isn't that liberating? Right? We can all do it, but usually we're too busy surfing the internet or whatever. No, I'm exaggerating, but exactly that. So, therefore, people, there are some interesting stories of the meditators, for instance. So they train their mind to such a degree they become so perceptive. There are actually cases of meditators who started to develop cancer, first stage, and they noticed. They went to the doctor early enough, because it's not just about training your brain and reversing kind of damages to the brain, but it's also becoming more perceptive of what's going on in your body, noticing changes and going to the doctor early enough, right? And then changing the brain in that way. They say like the gamma waves or something, whatever, in the brain of people who meditate, very different brains. So you can read about all this research. Very interesting. And again, when we study, we learn, it's always the mind that learns. Of course, you need to have the brain to hear what the teacher says, to see what the teacher says, to be able to think in a certain way. That is necessary. So the brain is there, but there's a lot of power of the mind. But why did we get the brain in this lifetime we have? Because of the mind, the previous mind. Right? Why do we have a brain the way we have? Why is my brain the way it is when I was born, with certain capacities that my sister, for instance, didn't have, right? My brain is very different from my sister's brain. Her abilities, the things she's good at is different. Well, because of the mind I had before. So the mind created the brain I had, and that brain then enables me to do certain things, but I'm not limited to that because my mind can go beyond that. So I may have a brain that displays plaque, like in the case of your example, but if I use my mind in a particular way, I can even take care of that, but not always. Not always. So you see, mind over brain over mind. I think we should realize it is mind over brain. Not in all cases, because if we have the karma suddenly to have a huge brain damage, then let's face it, we're going to be limited. But again, it goes back to the mind creating the causes for that to happen. That's a little harder to believe because it goes back to the previous life. But that's so liberating. It's our mental consciousness that is mainly responsible for the brain we get in the first place. And even within the limits of this brain we have in this life, there is things we can do. We can make changes, profound changes. So let's not waste time by just being so obsessed with the eye. Right? That's the message the Buddha is giving us. That's what the Buddha is saying. You have this incredible mind. You have barely used 10% of that. So this whole thing, we don't use the brain, we do use the whole brain. It's not just one part and the rest we don't use. But we could use it more. We can use our mind more. There's more room for improvement. Look at the minds of these meditators. Their brains are different. Look at the minds of these nuns there. Okay, their brain actually is not that different, but their mind has gone beyond that. We can all do it. Why not? Why lose out on it? That's all. It's not about joining the club of Buddhists. Who cares you're Buddhist or not? I don't care, and you shouldn't care. It's not about that. It's about using these techniques and making them and checking them out and seeing whether you can go beyond the ordinary and can go beyond and tap into that incredible potential. And doing so benefits you, but also benefits others. Because those who know you, or maybe don't know you, may be inspired to do the same. So it's like a ripple effect. This is how we can truly benefit others. So important. Yes, Tyler?
So I know there's a lot of Western Dharma teachers, I'm thinking specifically right now, like Sam Harris, who say basically there's no free will. And I'm still kind of like diving into that. And maybe this hijacks too much, and like emptiness and free will, and then
No, it's very important. It's very important. Very
mind
important.
over brain and brain over mind. Which one's which, and what's your opinion on that? Or like, is
Okay.
there debates?
There's no free will.
And maybe I'm hijacking again.
No, you're not hijacking it. It's very important. That comes up sooner or later anyway. If you don't bring it up, someone else will. But we can only talk about it once we get into dependent origination. But think about it in the meantime. Is there free will? Is there any free will? Okay, that's a very important argument because it's misunderstood. I'm not even going to tell you what I think for now. Is there free will or not? Very important. So but I can't say anything now yet because unless we talk about dependent origination, it won't make sense what I'm going to say. All right. So you didn't hijack it. You brought it in. Very good. All right. So compassion. Yes.
If I have a situation
Yes.
wherein someone insults me in front of another group of people,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
And now I feel that hurt.
Yes.
And you're asking me to like understand at that given moment that the self isn't there. But then, if in that moment I'm able to achieve this,
Yeah.
but my mind knows that because that incident happened in front of 10 other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those 10 other people in the future are going to see me through that insult.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're going to behave with me in that way.
Okay. Okay.
So that scares me. And then I'm like, no, the eye is still there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. All right, okay. Well, first of all, let's analyze that. You have to take apart this situation. If you were one of the 10 people and the person there being criticized was someone else, now, if you know that person well, would that influence your opinion of that person? If you really like that person, you know they're a good person, and whoever criticizes them, they're just wrong. Will you go home thinking, all right, they criticized them, no, I must have been wrong, they suck? Would you do that? I mean, just that criticism, honestly, if someone criticizes now someone I know well, they criticize them because they just don't get it. Or they perceive a quality that is actually a quality, perceive that as a fault. I don't necessarily agree. I mean, think about it. In that moment, whatever the person says to you doesn't make it true. And even if it were true, it's not appropriate to express it in a mean way. You would probably feel sorry for the underdog. I mean, we're usually we on the side of the underdog, right? The underdog is the person the victim, usually like the victim. When you have two people and one person gets attacked, are we usually on the side of the attacked person? We may keep quiet, not to become the victim ourselves. Sure, that's possible, but we're still on the side of the victim. Is there anyone who would always be on the side of the criticism? Criticism needs to be, criticism can be kind and understanding, or it can be rude. Kind and understanding, okay. But I would be totally on your side, even if I don't dare to speak up in that moment, depending on, it may make the anger worse, or my self-cherishing doesn't allow, whatever. But honestly, just see the situation not from your perspective. Try to see it from everyone else's perspective. Try to put yourself into the shoes of the person witnessing it. Would you be on the side of the person who just insulted you? Or insulted you? You wouldn't, would you? And so are the other 10 people. What makes you think? If now, even if I wasn't teaching that class, I hadn't done anything to anyone, right? And suddenly someone comes in and starts shouting at me, I know you're on my side, because I would be on your side. Of course, if I haven't done anything, you haven't done anything. I mean, from the little I know, you don't strike me as someone who deserves to be criticized. You're gentle, you're kind, you're open. What is there to criticize? So if someone were to criticize you, they're probably wrong. So, big deal. They're just wrong, plain old wrong. And they give you the opportunity to practice patience. Honestly, I mean, let's look. You see, the thing is, we have to put ourselves more into other people's shoes. We have to think more from their perspective. It's very important. I'm trying to think of an example. Lots of times I have this thought, we have to do it more, we have to do it more. Oh, for instance, when someone doesn't like us, when they treat us, we don't know them, they don't know us, but they treat us badly, right away they think, oh, they don't like me. But usually it's like they don't like anyone. Actually, if we think about it, I didn't give them any reason why they shouldn't like me. I haven't done anything, I don't know them, they hardly know me. So I take it personally. I think it's just directed at me. But if I see it more objectively, stepping away from myself, why would they? There are tens of other people, there are hundreds of other people. I'm focused on myself, so I think they only don't like me, and I'm so confused because they haven't done anything. No, they probably don't like anyone else either. But that's what we don't do. We don't step out of it, right? We don't step out of it. So my mom has a habit. She takes it personal all the time. She's insecure, very insecure. And I know why. Because in the Second World War, they lost their house, and she was sent without their parents first into that village when the war was going on, so before they lost the house. And they sent her to the countryside, and she didn't know anyone. It was only 20 kilometers from the city she grew up in, or she lived in, but they spoke a different language. They spoke this weird German. I can't do it. It's actually near where I grew up, but no longer speaks that dialect. She couldn't speak the language, and she was bullied. She was 7, and she was bullied so badly, and her parents weren't there, no one to protect her. So she became really insecure, right? It was very, She was very much traumatized. And the war was raging on. So she would walk to school and planes would come down and shoot people like walking there. And she saw people being shot in the middle of the road. So there was that, right? And of course it was Germany's fault, but not my mom's. I mean, she was 7 years old. So she was totally traumatized. Experiencing the bomb attacks in her city, being sent to the countryside, being bullied terribly. And only some years later, then her parents came back. They were so poor that nothing to eat. She had to go and work. So all that mess, and no one to treat her problems. So now she's very insecure. And so sometimes I'm just serious, I'm thinking something, and she's asked me, did I do anything to you? Are you angry with me? And I'm like, Mom, why should I be angry with you? I wasn't thinking, like, why should I be angry with you? And then her son-in-law, he's sometimes grumpy, but he's a good person. So he's sometimes with me like that, but I know he's just grumpy, and I wait a little bit, and when he's not, then, go back to talking. But my mom is like, are you angry with me? And I say, Mom, don't say that to him. It's going to make him angry. It's not against you. He treats me like that as well. Please watch him, how he treats me. Right? Or my nephew's girlfriend, she's sometimes really rude. So we were on the phone the other day, and she's like, she's so rude, she doesn't like me. And I'm like, no, she doesn't dislike you. She's like that with me as well. She's insecure. And she covers it with unfriendliness. She pretends she's confident. It's not true. Watch further. Don't just look. Watch her. And sure enough, my sister wasn't there. Her nephew wasn't. And she looked after the dogs next door. And my mom became best friends with Natasha. And she's like, she's so nice. And I said, Mom, I told you. Listen to me. Remember next time I tell you. And watch a little better. Don't just focus on, I keep telling her, don't just focus on yourself in that moment. Watch how she's with other people. It's not directed at you. That's the problem. She's too much in her own mind and body. We need to look out a little bit. How do others put ourselves into their shoes? How do other people treat them? Don't just focus on yourself. That's like putting on blinders. You see it just from your perspective. And my mom is an extreme example because of that insecurity she has, but we're all like that to a certain degree. Only a Buddha sees it fully. And I don't have the answers. I have my own insecurity and my own stuff. But I've been lucky with the Dharma teaching me all this. And it's taken many years. But now with my mom, it's so obvious. With my mom, and she's never going to listen to it. Anyway, she doesn't know enough English, so. But it's so true with my mom. She's so insecure. Unbelievably insecure, right? Because of that, and I totally get it. And then when she's comfortable, when she's with me and she doesn't feel threatened, she's totally herself, no problem. But when she's with others, any kind of party, I have to always sit with my mom because she's insecure. So I have to sit next to her. She feels there's someone, so I always choose a spot next to her so she feels safe. And people don't know this, right? They don't know this. They sometimes think she talks too much. That's just insecurity, right?
How can we help them?
Well, by asking them what's the matter. So with my mom, she trusts me enough. She calls me every day. Every day. Every day. Yesterday was 3 times. Right? So again and again she called me. Then the internet broke down. And it's always WhatsApp calls. But it's fine, it's fine. Sometimes it's just a few moments, and that's fine. I can make that time. It's no problem. And it's always about what she just ate or what she just, what's cheaper now. The tomatoes were really cheap, so I bought those. I get a whole shopping list. Okay, fine. I know the prices of tomatoes. I'm really informed. But I let her just talk, so why not? Sometimes I do something at the same time. I work a little. I have to type something. I still listen. I can do both. So, okay, it gets boring about tomatoes and prices or whatever. So I do my work, but at the same time I listen. And sometimes it's about these issues with my nephew's girlfriend. Oh, that's been going on for weeks. And yesterday, finally, she tells me, I had such a good time with her. She's so nice. And so I said, Mom, Please don't forget what I told you, and next time remember that. Remember you were wrong then. And next time think, could I be wrong again? Just doubt yourself. So I guess again and again and again. She doesn't say you're right. Never mind, she doesn't have to, right? She doesn't say anything, so I know she doesn't disagree. She's just quiet then. She does this like, right? And so again, to explain, to listen, first listen really carefully, understand the issue, listen, right? With my mom it's easy, she talks so much, so it's kind of like with me. So it's easy, I know, and she tells me over the phone. And then say, look, you feel your son-in-law doesn't like you, but he's like that with me. He's like that with his kids sometimes, and he's a beautiful person. But sometimes he's just in his own world and he can seem grumpy. He actually isn't. If you say, are you grumpy? Oh, no, sorry, right? I would never say that to him, but my mom, she's like, she says, did I do something to you? Are you angry? And I can get myself to go, Sometimes if I don't smile, right, I'm just busy, she comes into my room. Did I do something? Are you angry? And I'm like, Mom, I'm not doing anything. Why should I be angry with you? You didn't do anything. She's like, just asking. And so then I said, you have to stop doing that. This is not good. Don't do that. First, unless you've done something. So explain it to her. And now she no longer, or she's better. So talk to them. Try to understand where the problem is. That it's too much focused on just you. Right? But don't say it in those words. Don't say it like that. But saying like, seeing it from the different perspective. Look at the other people. Look how this person, for instance, this is just one example, how they act like that with everyone. It's nothing personal. Right? You haven't done anything, so why would it be? So we can really help others, but we need to understand the whole situation and put ourselves into other person's shoes without suffering what they're suffering, but looking, like stepping outside of this I, me, and mine. Does that make sense? Yeah? Sorry, I chatted a lot these last few moments. I kind of lost track a little bit of what I wanted to say, actually. But I think that's so important and so practical. And I was just like my mom. I was just like my mom. I mean, I'm my mom's daughter. That insecurity, I grew up with that. I was very, very insecure. But it changed with these methods. Not overnight, of course not. It took time. But I was just as insecure, and I was like, people don't like me, and yeah, I was exactly like my mom. And I changed. These methods, they really work if we apply them, give it time, and hang in there, right? It's so liberating, unbelievable. Okay, anyway, it's time for tea. Let's have a tea break. Okay. Please go. Simran, did you have a question? Did you raise?
No, I just wanted to add to the Alzheimer thing. So there's this philosophy of